welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Bryson Insurance Broker series of webinars. Today we're focusing on transportation, and with Bryson Insurance Brokers, we offer personal lines and commercial insurance. As well, we focus on our niche industry of transportation. Bryson Insurance Brokers believes in educating and providing education on safety, compliance, loss prevention, and networking, and thus the webinar today. We believe in bringing value not only to you as a customer, but to friends, anyone who can learn from our webinars and contribute to their successes. Today we have Chris Harris with us. Thank you for joining us. Chris is well known within the transportation community. Chris's history is well entrenched as his beginning of his career as a driver, promoting into safety and compliance, driver recruiting, training. Chris has worked with a large transportation insurance company who focuses only on transportation. He has been in the brokerage arena, providing transportation insurance, and within the last 4 years has started Safety Dawg, being a consultant and contributing to safety not only for customers, but promoting safety on the roads to the general public and awareness of how to start your operations and your successes. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass our presentation over to Chris Harris, who's going to give us an insight on the CVOR, how to manage your profile, what your violations, your safety rating, and how it means not only to you, but to your shippers, customers, and also to the general public. So Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
It's awesome. Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited about this.
Same here. Same here. I mean, we have people joining us who are just at the entry level. We have people here who are seasoned, who run large companies. So, I mean, I think there's going to be a benefit to many, many people.
It's awesome. And for those of you on the webinar, please ask your questions as we go through. Linda will be watching the chat. If she sees something, she's going to interrupt. And hey, Chris, she'll be moderating it, which means that if it's the appropriate time to ask your question, she's going to interrupt and throw that in. If we're going to get to it a little bit later in the presentation, obviously she knows what the presentation is, so she'll delay asking that question until we get to that area. So please go ahead and hi, look, there's all the people in here. There's Kathy and Nasser, Rick, Stacy, Terry. There's just a ton of you in. Thanks for joining us today. Bones and Brittany.
Jim, yes.
Yeah.
We can't list them all, but I mean, that's a good start, and thank you very much.
So what we're going to be talking about today really is MTO. Know when and why MTO will come in and intervene. Intervening, I refer to it as MTO is trying to get your attention. So when are they going to do that? How to find the training opportunities in your CVOR, what does the insurance carriers look for when looking at your CVOR? What are some of the alarm bells that the insurance companies see? And so that's what we're covering today. When will MTO come in and intervene? These are the numbers that are so important. First of all, you all, I'm sure, know what an overall violation rate is. As your overall violation rate hits these plateaus, MTO intervenes in different ways. So if you've thought about it or not, they try to get your attention. And the first level is at 35%. When your overall violation rate goes above 35%, the computer automatically sends out a warning letter. And basically, the warning letter is just saying, company, pay attention. Your CVOR is escalating. It's gone higher than we would like. Would you please pay attention to your CVOR and start taking some action? So that's the very first intervention. At 50%, you get onto an unwanted list. And that unwanted list is, we might come to audit you. Understand that Ontario, I believe it's divided up into 6 territories. each area can only do so many audits, but they start at the worst number and work their way down. So if you're at 51%, the chances of you being audited are much lower than if you were at 80 or 90%. So that's how that works. And there was something else I had in my mind there.
I have a question.
Okay.
First question.
Yay.
So if I'm at an inspection scale, what happens when I come in? So I'm sitting with a CVR profile of maybe 20%, and you have a 51%. What happens at the scale?
You do get more attention. The
I
higher
figured
the
that.
number, and this is where drivers for companies, if you've never thought about it, I think you should use your CVOR as a sales tool. And sales is not just for shippers or receivers. Why are you not using, if you've got a great CVOR that is well below 35%, why are you not sharing that with the drivers and trying to let the drivers know, look, you're not going to get inspected nearly as often with our company as with a company that's over 50%. Because yes, they are getting more attention at the scales as you roll by. So great question, thank you.
And how many times should I be pulling my CVOR profile as a company?
I love it once per month because it's so important that you keep on track of it. There's lots of acronyms in our world. CVIRs, Commercial Vehicle Inspection Reports, that's the piece of paper that you get from the scale. They show up on your CVOR, and you want to make sure that you get every one of them. We do have a third person in here. Kyle, go ahead.
So we have a question here as well, if we have just one moment to interrupt. When do we get notified when we're getting audited? And what happens if we elect to refuse an audit?
Refuse an audit? You can't refuse an audit.
But it is a question, and a valid question for this individual.
MTO, it's really important. On your first page of the CVOR, you have your address. And the address needs to be where you can be found Monday to Friday during business hours, generally 9 to 5. So during business hours, where can you be found? Because the police and MTO and other people have the right to show up unannounced at your place of business, and MTO can show up unannounced to conduct an audit. Yeah, scary. So you don't want to be on the audit list.
How much advance notice are you given? That's another question we have from one of our callers.
Yeah, none. You don't have to be given notice. Generally speaking, MTO does provide a few days, up to, I've heard up to 2 weeks, but they do not have to provide notice. Think of it this way. If you had a wheel off, they can show up at any time to check that maintenance file before you have a chance to look into it yourself. If you had a fatal crash, an at-fault fatal crash, they could show up at any time to inspect that driver file. That's their rights and that's their obligation. So on to the next level. At 70%, what's going to happen is your rating might change. So if your rating was currently satisfactory on audited, at 70%, it's going to change to conditional. And again, MTO is trying to get your attention to pay attention to the CVOR. So that's what they would like to do there. And then at 80%, this starts to get scary, I think, and interesting. At 80%, you are asked, and listen to my words, you're asked for a meeting. Please come and join us in St. Catharines at MTO. And it's an interview, that's the word that they use, and you're supposed to go with an action plan, how to address your excessively high CVOR.
So when you go with your action plan, is this something that you could help with?
Oh, thank you for that.
But it's
so
true,
softball.
Many people do not know what an action plan entails or how to present it to the MTO.
Yeah, and I have been down on interviews with clients, and that's why usually they become my client. They've gotten invited for an interview, so we do an action plan, and then if they want, I go with them to there. The two that I've been on, it was only one MTO representative there, and you talk, and it's a very nice conversation. MTO, by the way, is not to be feared. Their goal, if that's the right word, is to make our public roads safe. And if they believe that you as a trucking company are trying to be safe out there, you don't have to fear them. They want to work with you and they want to help you get along. If they believe that that truly isn't your goal, then you've got trouble.
And I guess that the CVOR is the one instrument that speaks volumes about what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. At 100%, you are again invited to St. Catharines, but this is a sanction hearing. We often call it a show cause hearing because you do go down. The show cause hearings that I've been to have anywhere from 3 to 5 MTO representatives, so it's quite intimidating. You're in a boardroom. You have to show cause why they should not take further sanctions. And what are sanctions? The ultimate sanction, I guess, is shutting your company down. They can withdraw or revoke your CVOR. But more likely in the first steps would be reduce your fleet size, would be one sanction.
The MTO can do that?
Okay.
Oh.
They can do that. They can
So
say,
at this point in time, they can say to you, you know, Mr. Harris, we now think that you are no longer operating at a safe level, 30 units, 40 units, so we would like you to reduce your fleet size down to 10 or 20.
right. They can reduce your fleet size. They could suspend your operating authorities for a period of days. One client that I was working with unsuccessfully, and there was reasons for that. However, that client got suspended for 9 days. They had to bring all of the plates off the truck to the local MTO office at 9 a.m. on a date, and they could not pick those plates up again until 4 p.m. on the last day of the suspension.
Question. So if you're saying that it's 9 days that the MTO is suspending that carrier, is it really 9 days if they're a U.S. carrier, if they travel to the U.S.? Sorry, not a U.S. carrier, but travel to the U.S. Because obviously sending, you know, trucks out, they can't come back in. So it's in essence longer than 9 days.
It's a huge penalty. Absolutely. And then on the 9th day, if you get your plates back at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, how many trucks are you haven't even, likely the trailers aren't even loaded because you couldn't get them to the shippers.
You're right. So it's longer than 9 days.
Yeah.
Penalty and overall.
It's huge, yeah. So that's the type of thing, when you get to 100, you just don't want to be there. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about with the overall violation rate, please reach out and we can have a quick phone call about how to read that. But I'm assuming everybody knows that part. So the next subject, hopefully you understand the intervention levels, 35, 50, 70, 80, and 100%. Those are the different levels that MTO reaches out. And as Linda pointed out, you can get much more attention at the scales as you roll by. The next thing, in your Level II CVOR, you should be getting it monthly, as Linda already alluded to, because this is a 2-year history book of your company, and it offers so much knowledge about your company. It's a great reference material.
But doesn't it show the culture and management style as well?
Absolutely. Great words, right? It gives so much insight to your company. But for a safety person, it provides the training opportunities. Where, if you wanted to improve your CVOR, how do you start? Well, I would start with the CVOR and analyzing it. So the first part here, as you can see on the screen, the overall violation rate, as most of you likely know, are made up of three, get my fingers in the, 3 components: collisions, convictions, and inspections. Collisions and convictions are 40% each of the overall violation rate, and they are measured by kilometric travel. So how many kilometers do you travel? So your kilometers must be accurate, and the Highway Traffic Act says accurate to within 20%. plus or minus, but it has to be accurate to within 20%. And it has a huge effect on 80% of the overall violation rate. So make sure your kilometric travel is accurate. Obviously, if the first two are 80%, 40% each, then inspections are 20%. If I was the safety person for this carrier, what jumps out here at me is convictions. 34% of this 71 is for convictions, for tickets. So how am I getting tickets? That's what I'd be analyzing throughout my CVOR, is where are the tickets coming from? Are they coming from lack of maintenance? Are they coming from drivers not doing a vehicle inspection properly? Are they coming from hours of service? Are they coming from crashes? There's a lot of areas that you can get tickets. Are they coming from inspections? Inspections generate a large number of tickets, not convictions, but a large number of tickets. So inspections, just because they're 20%, don't discount them. Did you?
Another question for you, surprise, surprise. On the convictions, is it possible on a CVOR that there could be an improper conviction noted on a carrier's CVOR profile?
Unfortunately, great question. It happens too frequently. Every company needs to have a policy and needs to enforce the policy that every driver needs to inform the company as to what's gone on the road every day. Unfortunately, many drivers don't understand that, and they plead guilty to a conviction that, one, they may not be guilty of, but because it was too difficult for them to go and fight the ticket or too costly, they chose not to. So that's the first thing. The other thing, and we're going to get to it in a slide in a sec, but while we're talking about it, you need to fight your tickets because, as you probably all know, the points stay on for 2 years, so for 24 months. But did you know that the points stay on from the event date? And that's often different from the conviction date. So if you were to hire somebody and they take it to court and they delay the conviction for 6 months, instead of the points being on for 24 months, now they're only staying for 18 months, which is a huge difference. It can have a dramatic effect on your CVOR, right?
Exactly.
And I know you've got Joel coming on a little bit later for another webinar, and all the different reasons why you want to fight your tickets. So stay tuned for that webinar as well. Joel's an awesome paralegal. So I don't want to tread onto his territory, but under the collisions, again, make sure that you are aware of the collisions. Collisions, you get points for a collision if there was, as MTO calls it, an impropriety. And an impropriety, don't confuse that with at fault, because it is different. You may not be at fault in the crash, but if, for instance, your driver was out of hours and should not have been there, there was definitely an impropriety happening. Therefore, you are likely to get points on your CVOR. And in crashes, points are really easy. 2 points for property damage, 4 points if somebody in the crash was injured, and a 6-point violation if somebody was to pass away in that crash. So 2, 4, 6. That's how it works if there was an impropriety. So you should find some crashes on your CVOR, some collisions that have 0 points because there was no impropriety on you, your truck, or your driver. So that's collisions. Here's a sample of a collision that I took from a CVOR. In this case, there was no points, so it wasn't the company's, there was no impropriety on the company. However, as I said, 2, 4, and 6 for property damage, injury, or fatal crash. Sorry, if we can go back to that one. Just be aware that they have things like driver action on here. So in this case, oh, too fast for condition. So I'm sorry, there would have been points on this because there was an impropriety. It was too fast for conditions. Oh. Simple. So, and again, that's a great learning opportunity. Why was the driver traveling too fast for conditions? Is that a consistent theme that shows up in your CVOR? You need to be reading every one of these incidents, and that's why Linda and I both suggest you get it every month so that you can stay on top of it and watch for trends in your CVOR. And come on, it's $5 every month. It's not going to break the bank. Here's a conviction. So again, convictions, I will tell you, you need to fight all convictions, if for no other reason, just to delay the points going onto your CVOR. It can have a huge positive impact on that overall violation rate. But truthfully, you can get ticketed for something that really isn't your fault. A good paralegal can take you and plead guilty perhaps to a different offense that might have 0 points. Not every offense carries points on it. So you need to know what it is that you're doing. You can fight your own tickets, of course. You need to know and have the experience of going to the Crown and negotiating. But please do fight your tickets. It's so important to delay the events. It's so important that your drivers tell you about every violation that they receive out there.
We have another question. If there's a violation and a driver has paid the ticket, is it possible to challenge the ticket after it has been paid?
Great question for Joel. Write that one down.
Yeah.
I believe it is, but that's not a positive, yes, you can do it, okay? That's.
So you should consult somebody?
Yep, you need to talk to somebody, a lawyer or a paralegal that can do that. And there are instances where I know that they can open it up, and there are instances that they cannot, and I'm not well enough versed in that.
Okay.
Right? But yes and no.
Wonderful. Understood. Understood.
All right. Inspections. This is one area that drivers often get misunderstood. A driver goes through an inspection station and doesn't get a ticket, and the driver goes, "Woohoo! It's a clean inspection." Well, we know if there's an X on the inspection, it's not a clean inspection. And it's so important that that driver hand in that CVIR, Commercial Vehicle Inspection Report, to the company, so that you as the company can follow up and make sure that if there was an X, that the repair was done. And the repair could be obviously to the vehicle, but have you thought of a repair being to the driver? If the driver did something wrong and got written up, excuse me, training is essential. Train the driver, document that training, and put it in the driver file, in your training file. It is hugely important that you document those events, because if MTO was to come in and do an audit, then they want to see that you've stuck to your company policies, that you retrained the driver when the driver messed up, because we're human, we mess up, and it must be documented.
If it's not documented, it didn't happen. We have a couple other questions. Brittany, by all means, we will alert to future webinars and we'll post it on the Bryson website. Terry has a question. When you review a company's Level II CVOR, should you review it to the last date of the last company Level II CVOR, or review the last 2 years of the most current company Level II?
Thanks, Terry. That's a great question.
Good question. Very good question.
And what happens, unfortunately, is if you order your CVOR every month, I think what Terry's trying to get to, if you order your CVOR every month and you only review the last 30 days, you may miss a conviction that goes on much further back in your CVOR. So whenever you order your CVOR, I always tell you to order 30 months, because if you order it today, today's July the 19th, it would be current to June, the middle of June, around the 19th of June. And so for sure, to get a 24-month window, I've got to go back 25 months from today.
Exactly.
And too many companies, they say, what's falling off my CVOR? And they only ordered a 24-month CVOR. I'm going, I don't know. The 25th month isn't here. I can't see what's current, right? That's about to fall off. So always order minimum 25 months. I like 30, but that's just me. All right. Oh, sorry. What was that? Did I cover everything on inspections? I think so. All right. Inspections. You've all seen CVOR's Level 2s before, I'm sure, and it is all there. It's a great history book. It tells you so much about training opportunities. When you look at inspections, what are the violations? Are my drivers doing a poor vehicle inspection? Are my mechanics missing opportunities when they're doing regular maintenance? If you're getting too many vehicle violations, is my regular maintenance regular enough? Like, these are the questions that you should be asking when you're reviewing your CVOR. What training? Is there a common violation that my drivers as a fleet seem to be getting?
Mhm.
And then you can train accordingly for that. So there's lots of training opportunities here. Insurance companies. Yay! Don't we love insurance companies?
We do, we do. However, there are times that some carriers do not love insurance companies. However, it's needed. They do look at the profiles. So the profiles are what the insurance carriers look for, opportunities as well as availability of coverage. They could deny a carrier based on their CVOR or FMCSA profile, as we well know. So it is important that it is a public document. So not only do insurance carriers look at it, general public can as well, your shippers and your customers.
Well, and many shippers and customers ask for it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Some of them actually know how to read it, some don't. And recently, as we know in the insurance community, of course, Linda has to be careful what she says because she works directly for them. I will say it's really, it's a hard market right now. Would you agree with that statement?
Extremely difficult market.
And I mean, true story, I've got a new client that I'm working with, has a 9% CVOR. Would you say that is good?
I would say that's good from a CVOR profile. Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Right? 9% CVOR, loss ratio current year and over the last 3 years is less than 30%. Over the last 14 years with the same insurance carrier, less than 30% loss ratio.
That's a dynamic risk.
What do you mean by dynamic risk?
It's an insurable risk, and it's one that the insurers would invite to be one of their clients, customer. Dun, dun, dun.
14 years ago, he failed an audit, an MTO audit. And for 14 years, he's had conditional on his CVOR. His customers don't care. And up until this year, the insurance industry didn't care.
The insurance industry has been caring for a couple of years. However, he's probably very fortunate that his existing carrier knows his history.
So this year he got a letter saying unless he invited the MTO in to perform an audit, he would be non-renewed.
Maybe describe that. What would the processes be? You would contact the MTO. Is it on your diary or is it on their time when they would come back out?
Yes, they say that they promise to come within 6 months. However, they can show up at any time from the time you've asked for it. So this carrier asked, got in contact with me, and I'm just doing a review for them. They're an outstanding carrier. They really are. They've got stuff in place. I don't think I'll work more than a day for them just to reassure them that they're good. MTO can come in. They are ready to pass an audit. I never tell a carrier that they will be ticket-free during an audit because, of course, I'm sampling files. The MTO is going to sample files, and if they sample different files, that could have a different result. However, I do tell the carriers when they are ready to pass because you can tell what the culture and everything is, and if they've got the right processes in place, they're going to pass the audit. It may not be ticket-free, but they're going to pass. And I have every confidence that this particular carrier is going to pass and make their insurance company happy, make their shippers happier, they'll be satisfactorily audited. Like, it's a good thing that they're doing, but it's an unusual market.
It is extremely unusual. But again, the message is clear that a conditional, even though it is an acceptable rating, conditional does mean that there could be no available coverage for a carrier.
What?
Insurance companies are cracking down. They're taking a look at it. There's a huge liability imposition if there's a a serious collision. From a liability perspective, it does speak volumes. So it is important, even though the safety percentage is within an acceptable level, that that conditional word be removed. We have another question, another couple questions coming up here as well. One of the things with safety rating, if it's satisfactory audited, satisfactory unaudited, what is the difference and what are the implications? Is it important to be satisfactory audited? I just asked the question, yeah. Sorry.
If I was a carrier, I would be satisfied with satisfactory unaudited. I would not invite the MTO in for an audit. I don't, because there's always the risk of getting tickets and costing me more money. So I would be satisfied. That's me. If depending on the commodities and my customers, if it was important to my customers that I had greater proof that the MTO says, hey, you know what you're doing, then absolutely I could invite them in and become satisfactory audited. So now I had a question for you, totally off script. I heard that some reinsurance companies, and you may have to explain what reinsurance is, will not work with the insurance companies on conditional CVORs, that might be in their contract. Have you heard of that?
I haven't heard of that per se. However, it is becoming extremely difficult. In the renewal process, new business process, there's stringent rules coming down from all insurers. It's been a difficult marketplace. And as far as reinsurance, I would say even at the primary level, getting by a conditional CVR is extremely difficult.
So if you have conditional, get rid of it. There's many, and not to promote myself, but there's many good safety consultants out there. If you don't have the expertise in-house, then reach out to somebody. There's good safety consultants out there. Bring somebody in and let them work with you.
Most definitely. We have a couple other questions. Bowen, I hope that we did help you, and thank you very much. Terry now has another question. What should a carrier do when they receive an inspection report where the officer has noted a defect in the report? Example, air leak in a truck.
What I have my carriers do is, first of all, if they have to return the report, sign saying it was fixed, make sure you do that. Follow through. Many jurisdictions, including Ontario, have that requirement. I attach the work order or the invoice showing the fix has been done directly to the CVIR. Then the CVIR then goes either into a CVIR folder with my CVOR. A copy of it could also go into the maintenance file where the original work order or the invoice is to match against the CVIR report. You've got to show that it's been done, taken care of, whatever the defect is. So that could be a vehicle defect or a driver defect. One carrier that I know, every time they get a CVIR, there's always a document attached. If it's a clean CVIR, the document is a letter to the driver saying congratulations and thank you. If it's a different type of CVIR report, one with a defect, then the discipline, the training, the repair order all get attached.
Again, it's documented, it happened.
Yeah. A lawyer once said to me, it's about the 3 Ps: policies, procedures, and proof. And usually companies have enough policies and they have enough procedures.
Not enough proof.
The proof that he says I get hung up on all the time. And that's from a lawyer who's defending companies. So yeah, prove it. So what do insurance companies look for? Sorry, the previous slide, all of it, they are looking at your overall violation rate. The trucking insurance companies all have people like me employed who are trucking insurance specialists who know how to read the CVORs. Most of the trucking insurance people, the underwriters, are really well versed in CVORs. They know how to read it. You can't pull something over on them. So they look at all of it, your overall violation rate. They look at the individual, the collision, the convictions, and the inspections rate. So your overall violation rate is everything. Your rating is everything. And that leads us into our third and last topic, training. What training do you do within the company? And one of the things I often refer to this book, and Kyle, our tech guy here at Bryson, is going to make this book available to you. It's a commercial vehicle operator safety manual. And right in that book, it tells you you've got to, one, train your drivers when you bring them on board, and then secondly, you've got to continuously train your drivers. It's part of the Health and Safety Act. There's a lot of legislation when you have employees or contractors working for you. So what training is it? And it starts off with, how do you introduce your drivers? In that book, the safety manual from MTO, it has a list of what you're supposed to do to onboard your drivers. There's a complete list in the book. It's module 7, so refer to that. It's in there, and it gives you a complete list of what you're supposed to do. And again, the third P, I keep coming back to it, but the proof. You need to document that you spoke to your drivers and that you introduced them.
So it doesn't appear that this is rocket science. We have a free manual from the MTO that says, this is how you need to operate. This is the confines that you need to respect as far as regulation. Now, a question though, Chris, going back to the rating here, it's not uncommon that some people will try to inflate a vehicle number in order to achieve a higher threshold.
To achieve a lower threshold.
The lower threshold,
right.
Yes, because they have a higher threshold. So what are the implications of that, and what would the requirement be for the MTO? Like, what would the implications be if you have 20 vehicles and you put 40 because you have a high threshold?
And of course, if you're putting 40 vehicles, you're matching the mileage to that vehicle, because we said that originally for 80% of that overall violation rate, it's all based on kilometers or miles. Mm-hmm. If you're inflating, the Highway Traffic Act has a clause in it that says it must be accurate to within 20%, plus or minus, but 20%. You can update your CVOR as often as necessary as you are either growing or shrinking, but you must update your CVOR and be truthful to within 20%. And if it's in the Highway Traffic Act, I got to believe you can get a ticket for it.
And is it on the previous year or the year ahead? My projection of how many vehicles I have.
You can use an estimate. So it can be on the upcoming year.
Okay.
Right? Because if you plan to grow, and right now, growth is very difficult, as we all know, because you can't find quality drivers at the moment. It's very difficult to grow, but there are companies that are managing to grow. Mm-hmm. So,
Stacy, we will be providing a link to how to secure a copy of this book. It is free from the ministry, so it will be available with the PDF file. Another question from Brittany: do you have a recommendation for a best agency for fighting tickets in the USA, despite state received? New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, etc.
I don't have a network. Do you have?
Well, there could be TIDA, which is definitely, yes. Mm-hmm. So TIDA is definitely a great resource. It's
what
TID,
is TIDA?
Transportation. Thanks, put me on the spot. Well, but it is, it's an association of lawyers.
Kyle, can we put that link in the?
We'll put that link in as well, Brittany. It is definitely a great resource of legal counsel in Ontario, in Canada, and the United States. So definitely great question. Thank you very much for asking that, Brittany.
And sorry, I didn't mean to.
No.
TIDA, it starts with transportation, and it is lawyers. So how do you introduce your newly hired drivers? What do you have in the way of training and documentation? That's huge. You need to document everything. Oh, sorry. And the last thing I wanted to say before I got to that last slide was ongoing training. Sorry, that was a slide there. Ongoing training. What are you doing on a regular basis? And I think monthly is ongoing. Mm-hmm. on a regular basis to educate your drivers. My suggestions to anybody would be at least a monthly safety memo with a quiz documenting that your drivers have read the monthly quiz. That's something each of you could produce yourself. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. There are online training programs available that you can subscribe to. There's pros and cons to online. I don't think anything substitutes person-to-person.
Hands-on training.
Right? But I certainly understand that to get your whole fleet together for a day or half a day, so, when you shut the fleet down and you rent a hotel room and all that kind of stuff, you can only do that once or twice a year. I understand that. Many companies do it quarterly, by the way. So there are other ways to do it on a regular basis. Most of you have satellite systems. Do you send out regularly, perhaps weekly, a safety message, a short one-liner, such as GOAL, G-O-A-L acronym? Get out and look when you go to back up. Just short things like that would be ways. But again, you must, as a safety person, you got to document those efforts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's.
If you don't document, it didn't happen.
That's it.
Okay. So we're just about ready to conclude our webinar on the CVOR. Thank you very much, Chris, for coming out. I really, really appreciate it. We have a couple minutes for any Q&A that we could have. We have the resources of Chris right here today. So Terry's come up. Thank you for a great hour. You're quite welcome, Terry. You're always appreciated. Terry's very focused on safety and compliance, a true leader in promoting loss prevention. So thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's greatly appreciated. At Bryson, we definitely put these on for networking purposes and for the betterment of our industry. I mean, we really do have an amazing industry where we take it with a lot of pride. Nasser, thank you, Chris, for the great info. There you go.
Well, thank you.
It's definitely appreciated.
I hope that all of you picked up at least one thing today, because this was a very basic overview of your CVOR. But if you picked up one thing, that it's time well spent, I believe. Jim says, certificates from carriers are good enough for documentation. Yes. If you train your drivers and you have proof that you trained them, then yes, certificates from yourself are good enough. From Carrier's Edge, yes. There's, for those of you looking for an online carrier, is what Jim is, an online training process. There's Carrier's Edge, there's Infinity, I better not forget Infinity. There's the Dawg Speaks, happens to be mine. But, and as I said, I do promote online training, but face-to-face is always the best. And don't forget, when we talk about training, it doesn't have to be all of your drivers at the same time. Training could be one topic over a whole month, but as you get 2 or 3 drivers in your office at one time, you can train them on that one topic, have them sign off, and if you do your whole fleet, that is safety training, and you didn't have to rent a hotel room.
Okay, we have another question here. When will the MTO streamline amendments to the laws?
I don't know what.
Okay, perhaps, Terry, if you could extrapolate on that. Not him when he's typing it right now.
And I would just, while Terry's typing, I'd just like to say thank you to Bryson. Thank you to all of our attendees today and the ones who will watch this in the future. Hopefully you found this of value, and I really appreciate your time. That's why we are 44 minutes into it, and we said it was going to be roughly 50 to 60 minutes, so we're right on time.
Terry, example, Schedule 1 has changed.
Right. For those of you who haven't heard yet, in May, and obviously Terry already knows, the Schedule 1 did change. We have until May of 2019 to get it into all of our trucks. We have until then to make sure your drivers are aware of it. I will supply Linda with a copy of the new Schedule 1, so maybe Kyle can also attach that for any of you that want the new Schedule 1. Linda can make sure that she gets it.
Well, I shall do that. You know that will be on there. Okay, thank you, Terry, for that. Okay, well, I do believe we're ready to wrap up. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. Of course, Stacy, we will supply you with a copy. Okay, thank you very much to everyone. Again, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your interest in promoting safety and compliance and making our roads safer. And Chris, again, appreciate it.
Thanks, darling.
Take care. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.